Good evening and welcome to My Child and CogAT, a parent and caregiver webinar for parents of students who will be taking CogAT in Washington Township schools this January, from January 12th to the 26th. My name is Andrea Cannon and I'm the district high ability coach. Should you have any questions, feel free to reach out via email or phone. This evening, we will be talking primarily about CogAT testing and placement into high ability programs here in Washington Township. We will not be discussing so much programming. However, if you have specific questions related to your child's placement for next year, please feel free to reach out individually. Let's go ahead and get started. Let's start by talking about what CogAT is. CogAT stands for the Cognitive Abilities Test. It is a multiple choice assessment that measures reasoning skills with different types of verbal, quantitative, and nonverbal questions. It is typically group administered, and it's given as an entrance exam into our school's high ability programs. CogAT is one of many data points that we use for eligibility into high ability programs here in Washington Township. It's listed by the National Association of Gifted Children as one aptitude test that is commonly used to identify students across cultural and linguistic backgrounds who otherwise may be overlooked. A little bit about testing day. What can your child expect? Well, CogAT takes about 90 minutes to complete. Grades K and 2 are not timed. Grade 5 has 90 minutes to complete. It's assessed in settings with breaks between, sometimes over a few days and sometimes over a few hours. Your child's school administrators will be in charge of creating a schedule. Please reach out to them individually if you're wondering what days and times your child will be testing. Kindergarten will only be taking 2 batteries this year, with 3 subsections in each, while grades 2 and 5 will be taking all 3 batteries with 3 subsections in each. Kindergarten will be taking the verbal and quantitative, while grades 2 and 5 will be taking verbal, nonverbal, and quantitative batteries. We'll get more into that later. Each subsection will take between 10 and 24 minutes to complete, which is why we say roughly 90 minutes. Teachers may spread the test session over a course of 2 days, and your child may make up the assessment if they are absent. In fact, our test window lasts until January 26th, so it gives us plenty of time. Any teacher in your child's building should be able to administer CogAT, maybe not necessarily your child's classroom teacher. Administrators can also administer CogAT to children who have missed out on testing day. Unlike most high-stakes standardized tests like iLearn, CogAT is mostly made up of pictures and analogies. And in a moment, we'll take a look at some examples of what the CogAT test looks like from the perspective of the child to give you a little bit of an idea. Many students even kind of find the test fun due to the nature of the images and tasks. In fact, I was able to administer an assessment very similar to CogAT to a group of 3rd graders a few months ago. And when we were done, the kids said, "Wow, that was fun. Can we do it again?" So it's not quite as intimidating as some of the standardized tests that your children are used to taking. Now, CogAT is an ability test, not an achievement test. So let's talk a little bit about the differences between those. An ability test will predict your child's capacity for learning in the future. It predicts how your child is predicted to perform later on. It's more abstract, and it usually contains more patterns and relationships in the world. Examples of other ability tests you might be used to are the ACT, the SAT, and of course, CogAT. Achievement tests, on the other hand, are more specific. They usually assess content that has already been learned. It assesses current performance. Instead of how they're predicted to perform in the future, it's how they're performing right now. Some examples are course exams and also iLearn, iRead, and NWEA, which we do give students in Washington Township 3 times a year, beginning of the year, middle of the year, and end of the year in language arts and math. Why do we administer CogAT when we have all of these other data points that we can use? Well, CogAT is special because it's a norm reference test of your child's reasoning abilities. It helps your teachers gain perspective on their academic potential. Again, not necessarily how they are performing right now in each content area, but how they are expected to perform in the future based on how they do on the assessment. It's used to identify early potential in kindergarten students. Again, kindergartners will only take verbal and quantitative batteries. And it's used to place students in elementary high ability programs in grades 3 through 5. So just as a reminder, we do not offer high ability programming for kindergartners. We start in grade 2 in Washington Township. We start in grade 3 in Washington Township. We administer CogAT to kindergartners because it allows us to nurture potential that we're noticing early on. That way, in first and second grade, we can keep an eye on those students and provide services that kind of help provide a pathway into a potential high ability placement later on. It also helps identify students who might benefit in participating in middle school honors classes later on. Coming back to the 3 batteries of CogAT, we have the verbal, the nonverbal, and the quantitative. Again, kindergartners take verbal and quantitative. Second and fifth will take verbal, nonverbal, and quantitative. Let's take a look at the difference between these 3 assessments. So beginning with the verbal battery, again, here we see lots of pictures, analogies. You'll see sentence completion questions, also picture and verbal classifications. For example, if we take a look at the second question, sentence completion, which one swims in the ocean? We're given a cat, a shark, and a bird. Finally, in the last one, picture verbal classification, we're given 3 different balls, a basketball, a beach ball, and a baseball. The child is to classify these as balls, things that get thrown, typically in sport or recreation, so they would select the soccer ball. Here's an example of the nonverbal battery. The nonverbal battery is going to have more figure matrices. It's going to have, paper folding, and some more classification that might deal more so with shapes. So for example, you have a large circle followed by a small circle, large triangle followed by a small triangle. Next, we have a paper folding where students are to kind of see the sequence of the paper folding and continue that sequence. And finally, figure classification. We have a circle, a square, trapezoid. And then we have to determine which of those would fit next. And because all 3 figures are shaded in blue, the blue shaded oval would be the correct answer for the third one. Quantitative battery is going to be more math heavy with number analogies, number puzzles, number series. For example, for the number analogies, you see in one picture, there's a picture of one nut. Then we see that the nut has been cracked in half. Finally, we see an apple. So then you would think the analogy is 1 multiplied to make 2. Here we have 1 apple to be multiplied or divided to make 2 sections. Number puzzles, we have a train car with 2 tomatoes. Then the idea would be that we take the 2 tomatoes and we separate them out to put 1 tomato in each of the 2 train cars that are connected. Finally, we have an abacus and a number series, 1 bead, 2 beads, 3 beads, 1 bead, 2 beads, 3 beads. Then the next bead in the series would be the 1 bead. Supporting all learners with CogAT results. We use CogAT for more than just high ability placement. CogAT encourages areas of strength in many areas. It provides tools to support areas of need, and it answers the question as to what kind and how much intervention does a child need to build up an area of weakness. It helps teachers determine how to differentiate. So if we can determine how a child is reasoning, where they're reasoning well, and where the holes or gaps are, we can certainly use CogAT as a tool for differentiating and meeting those needs. Washington Township is required by law to assess students for high ability services. In fact, here we have IC 2036-1, Section 3 of the Indiana Code. This states that a high ability student is a student who performs at or shows the potential for performing at an outstanding level of accomplishment in at least one domain, and I'll get into domains in a moment, when compared with other students of the same age, experience, or environment. With CogAT, we compare apples to apples. We're comparing students who are living in the same geographical area with students who are living in the same geographical area. That's important because students who grew up in San Diego, California have a different set of schema and background knowledge than students who grew up in Indianapolis, Indiana. It's just the nature of the geographic difference. That's why we compare with percentile rank students who are living in the same area and even students who are attending the same school as your child. And it's characterized by exceptional gifts, talents, motivation, and interests. Let's take a look at a score profile. This is a profile that you are welcome to request after CogAT has been administered to your child to see a breakdown of how they performed in the different batteries: verbal, quantitative, nonverbal. We take what's called the composite. A composite is going to be an average of those three scores combined together. Here's an example of one child's scored profile. You can see their standard age score: verbal 108, quantitative 96, nonverbal 94, with a composite of 99 percentile. We're going to talk more about what age stay 9 and age percentile rank means here in just a minute. But the age percentile graph on the left-hand side also offers a visual breakdown of how a child performs in each of the different batteries individually. When we're looking for identifying students for high ability programming, we really want to take a look at the different batteries individually to see if we're noticing a strength in one area or another. Here's a summary of stay 9s and percentile ranks. In Washington Township, we're going to use the percentile rank to help us determine eligibility for high ability programs. For the stay 9 of 9, we're taking a look at a bell curve, and I'm going to show you an image of that bell curve in just a second to give you a little bit more perspective. Stay 9 of 9 and 8 would put us in the very high above average range, with percentile ranks ranging from the 99th percentile to the 89th percentile. Again, we can see that breakdown by the three batteries to see where your child might land in each of those three batteries individually, because it helps us see where we need to nurture more talent or where we need to provide support to fill gaps. Again, there's that APR graph. APR stands for age percentile rank, and that's how your child performed compared to others in the same age group. After CogAT has been completed, your child and you will receive what's called a placement letter. It will help you see whether or not your child has been invited to participate in high ability programs or not. It's going to include the CogAT composite, which is the average of the three batteries. It's also going to show you the verbal, nonverbal, and quantitative isolated along with ELA and math NWEA scores. And again, NWEA is an achievement assessment that we use in Washington Township 3 times a year to assess where your children are in each content area: domain, math, and language arts. Here's an example of what that placement letter looks like. And as you can see in the middle, it breaks down exactly what their score would be in each of the categories, along with the composite, the NWEA math, and the NWEA reading. We use multiple data points to help us make a determination for high ability placement. So it's important that we see how they performed across the board in each of the different categories. Again, that composite score is going to be the total average of verbal, nonverbal, and quantitative. Here's another visual that just helps break down how to determine where your child fits in the age percentile rank bell curve. In this illustration, if your child scored 50%, that means that they scored higher than 50% of the people in the country, or if they scored higher than 50% of the people that they're being compared to. And typically we use a local percentile rank, which means they would be compared to students right here in Washington Township. Some important upcoming dates to keep in mind: January 12th to the 26th, which begins this week, CogAT assessments to all kindergarten, second, and fifth grade students. Again, please reach out to your child's building level administrators to see when their specific schedules for assessment are. February 14th to the 25th is when registration opens for parents to request high ability testing for students in grades 3 and 4. So if your child has just moved into the district for the first time, or if they missed out on testing due to COVID or some other complexities, you're welcome to reach out and we can make sure that we administer assessments to those students. February 1st to March 4th, testing results will be sent home electronically using that placement letter that I just showed you. March 21st to April 1st, high ability placement reconsideration notification based on appeals. So you will be able to appeal for your child to be eligible for high ability placement. And there is a process for that as outlined in our high ability handbook, which you can find on the Metropolitan School District of Washington Township's website. Who can appeal? All second and fourth grade students who did not qualify in January. So should you have any questions or reflections, comments, please feel free to reach out to me. Again, my name is Andrea Cannon. I'm the District High Ability Coach. You can reach me at acannon@msdwt.k12.in.us, or you can just call me directly and I'd be happy to get right back with you. Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure. Again, feel free to reach out. We'll see you next time.